April 23rd, Hebrew lesson, part 3. Shalom, shalom. So the halot, the challah bread in the plural, has a numerical value of 438, and so does as sin, or like sin, or sin offering is how it's translated in the verse. Right? Now, let's go to the next word in Leviticus 7:13. Let me know if I'm going too fast. I have a tendency. Yeah, go ahead.
So if they have the same number, no matter where they are, they have typically the same meanings, right?
Or a connected meaning, like the
Or
two,
connect.
or they may not be an identical meaning, but they're connected. Like there's a connection between the meaning of the two words. So if they have the same numerical value, there's a connection. So here we have lechem, which is the next word in Leviticus 7:13, and lechem is the word for bread. And so we're seeing hidden messages in the Hebrew, is what I'm saying. So when a rabbi comes to the verse and he wants to look at it numerically, remember we had in the first word, we had hands and feet, right? And we had redeemed. And we actually had phrases, right? Shall be redeemed, and two different Hebrew words for redeemed, but they both added to the same number. And then we had sin offering. So hands and feet, redemption, sin offering. This is what the rabbis found so far in the first two words of this verse. Then you have lechem, which is bread, which has a numerical value of 78. Now, I wrote down 78, Exodus 20, verse 10. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to not flip to the verse, but just go ahead with the... So this is a vav, which is 6, a noon, which is 50, a bet, or a vet in this case, which is 2, and a final cough, which is 20. So there you have 78. And thy son. Boy, these are like strong hints. Genesis 24:27. His mercy. That's a somic there. And this is a hasdo, which is his. When you conjugate Hebrew words, you get used to it if you study it long enough, but if you've ever heard of the word hesed, is mercy in the Hebrew. The hesed, the covenant love, the mercy of God, is hesed. Hasdo is his mercy, his covenant love. So this word here is 860. That's a het, a samik, a dalet, and a vav. 78. The same numerical value as lechem. So you get his and thy son, his mercy, and I'll give you one more, but we won't go there. I'll just move it along. But you get sacrifice. There's in 2 Chronicles 7:1, and the sacrifice, the phrase and the sacrifice adds up to 78. First word of the verse, he finds hands, the cough, right? Hands and feet. He shall redeem, right? Redemption. Two different words for redemption, two different Hebrew words, both add up to 100, right? And So we're just going to put redeem. That's the first word. The second word we said sin offering, right? Or as sin. As a sin offering. Hands and feet, redeem as a sin offering. And thy son, or and your son. Guess we're not in the 16th century anymore. And thy son, his mercy, and sacrifice. I'm getting a message hidden in the Hebrew. Hands and feet, redeem, as sin, and thy son, his mercy, sacrifice. You see, we're starting to get a picture there, right? And then the next word in the verse is chametz, which is leaven. And if those of you have been following my Hebrew Shalom, I made a post about the chametz, the communion being with leavened bread. And this is one of the verses, Leviticus 7:13, that the Lord took me to, because in this verse, all through Leviticus, you have sacrifices of unleavened bread, unleavened bread, unleavened bread. And then you get to this verse, and it's leavened bread. It stands out. Why leavened bread for this sacrifice? Well, the short version is he became sin for us. So he took our leaven upon him. He became leavened. And as Yeshua went into the grave, he went in as a leavened bread offering because he had taken our leaven upon him. But by the time he came out of the grave, he came out of the grave as unleavened. Right? He paid the sacrifice for the sin, and he was holy. Now this is chametz, which is 138. That's the final forms might mess you up if you're not used to them, but that's a zadi. If you've ever seen the letter zadi, but it's the final form of it. It looks almost like an English Y. But you get 138. And this 138 number I found especially interesting. When you take this word backwards, and you can find it in several verses, these are recognized by the rabbis as prophetic verses about the Messiah. And this is what they call the branch, or the zamak. Zamak means branch, and it's simply chametz backwards.
Wow.
So it's the same numerical value, right? Because it's chametz backwards. So when you take leaven, which is representative of sin, and you spell it backwards, right? You get 138, and you get the branch, which is the Messiah. Now let me take you to Esword, and we're going to show you just a couple verses. This one you might take in your notes, because this is worth maybe looking up later and thinking about. I wrote down Zechariah 3:18. There's at least 5 instances that I found where the branch shows up, and both Christian scholars and rabbis all recognize these as messianic prophecies, prophetic verses about the Messiah. Because here it says, "Hear now, O Joshua." Now Joshua in the Hebrew is Yeshua. "Hear now, O Yeshua the high priest." And then it says, "I will bring forth my servant, the branch." And that word, the branch, is capitalized in the King James because they recognize that that's speaking of Yeshua, of the Messiah. And it's that word zemak that I was just showing you. And there's several of them. And what I was reading a Messianic scholar, he posted about it, but he said that each one of the occurrences of the branch refers to one of the Gospels. So Matthew was the king, Mark was the servant, right? So the one we just looked at was the servant. My servant, the branch, would have been Mark. Luke was the man. John was Jesus is God, right? So each one of those is in one of these verses. And Jeremiah 23:5, that's the one that would correspond to Matthew, the book of Matthew, as king, right? Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper. So you see, that's the branch reigning as king. So that's the book of Matthew. So here we have Zamach, which is the branch, the Messiah, and it's Hametz, it's leaven. So the Messiah will become sin. That's what's hinted at in the Hebrew. And one other interesting passage is in Numbers, where it says a plague broke out and they had to run with the censer between the plague and the people. So this word for plague, the plague, is what it actually is in the Hebrew, right? Is Negef. Negef is Hebrew for plague. And if we put the Ha in front of it, right? Ha Negef is the plague. And this is found in Exodus, Numbers, I think it is. Numbers 16:47. But it's the story of Moses, and there was a plague that broke out on the children of Israel, and Aaron grabbed the censer, and I heard someone preach about it because of the virus and all that, and they were talking about prayer and how the censer went between the plague and the children of God. But if you add this up, Hanegef, the plague, you get 138. Same as Hamatz, same as the branch.
Wow.
So it's deep. It just keeps going and going and going like this through the whole verse. This is the end of part 3, to be continued in part 4. Shalom, shalom.